Hey folks, welcome to The Good Wolf Show. My name is Cedric Boyd. I'm your host and author of The Good Wolf. This show is going to be about folks coming on discussing their book. We're going to have music. We're going to have dancers. We're going to have a bunch of different folks with a bunch of different things. We're coming to you live from Framing by Frankie at 1001 Del Paso Boulevard. If you have any framing questions or issues, we're going to go ahead and drop her website on the lower third of the corner, and go ahead and get in contact with her if you have any questions. Now, a couple of things about the show. This is my first show. I just really wanted to present my show and my idea of what we want to try to get done here. But it's not going to be about the book. It's going to be about writing books. I've got a lot of questions in the process of writing this book, and once it came out and people enjoyed it, and I'm a new author myself, so I had to struggle with it too. Excuse me. And I get a lot of questions about how do you write a book? How do you find a topic? Stuff like that. So the goal in this show today is I'm going to discuss how I wrote a book, and I feel like some of the same struggles that authors have across the board. Now, it's not going to be about diction and punctuation and stuff like that, because you can get that at any school. You can get any editor to take care of that for you. It's going to be more about the feelings and the process of writing a book, and when you get stuck, and how do you start, and how do you finish, and what happens when you get writer's block and stuff like that. So that's what this show is going to be about, and I hope you enjoy it. Where do I start? Where do I start when I write a book? There's two things I think are the most important things before you write a book to know. First off, it's the topic, and this is crucial. I think with your first book, the most important thing that you do is you write about something that you know, and you write about something that you're passionate about. Okay. The reason you want to write about something that you know is because it is very difficult to write a book, your first book, and do all the research, to do all the background stuff that you're not familiar with before you really become a professional at writing a book. And the reason you want to write about something you're passionate about is because it is very difficult to write a book. It's fatiguing. You feel tired. You want to put it down. And if you have a lot of passion about it, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to get through the downtime. Now, the example I'm going to use is not my own book. The example I'm going to use is Rocky. Okay, we're all familiar with Rocky. What a lot of people don't know is Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky in a weekend. He talked his way into the studio. He told him he had this great movie about a fighter. And he did, but it was in his head. He hadn't actually written it yet. So Stallone is really a brilliant man. He's so smart that he made everybody think he's stupid. That's how brilliant this man is. And he's an inspiration to me and most folks that start this business. So we'll start with Rocky, and we'll use what he was passionate about, was fighting, and film, and what he was knowledgeable about was himself. Okay, because Rocky is basically about Sylvester Stallone's life. So he's very knowledgeable about himself, and he's very passionate about fighting and being in film. So that was why Rocky was such a great film, and that's why he did such an incredible job writing it. Okay, guys, most people don't have to write a lot for their job, so they're usually not used to writing in a descriptive way. So I have a writing drill that's for folks that are new to writing. Maybe they haven't written any creative writing stories since they were kids. So this was a drill I picked up. What you want to do is go to a room that you're very familiar with. And I want you to describe every detail in the room. If there's a stain on the carpet, if there's paintings on the walls, is there a TV in there? Are there CDs on the floor? Is there a couch? What color is the couch? Is the couch soft? Is it hard? What color is the carpet? Is it hardwood floors? If I dropped a pen, would it make a noise? Or would it just be muffled? Is there a throw rug? Or any books laying around? And I mean be really, really specific in terms of color and content in that room. Okay, once you do that, and once you've got it all figured out and you've got every minute detail of the room, I want you to write about how you feel when you're in the room. Have you ever had an incident in the room? Did you propose to your wife when you were in the room? You know, do you have a lot of great family meals there if it's the kitchen? Did you watch the Yankees win the World Series? How did that make you feel? You know, we want to build a feeling of the room, and we want to build a description of the room. And if you do that every day, and then you go to different rooms, and you get to the point where you're really, really good at it, give it to somebody, have them read it, and see if they can tell which room it is when you take them to the room. And that's the best way to build your descriptive writing technique. Okay, folks, we have picked our topic. It is something that we are passionate about. It is something that we are knowledgeable about. We've done our writing drills. We know how to write now. Now we have to start. Again, I'm going to reference Sylvester Stallone's Rocky. He came to the studio. He told him he had a film that was already taken care of, was already written. It was called Rocky. The only problem is he hadn't written it yet. He told him that on a Friday, and by Monday, he finished the film. He had finished writing it. So he wrote Rocky in 2 days. Okay, I don't expect you to write your book in 2 days. Sylvester Stallone is an exceptional individual, but I do expect you to start. The key to the whole thing was he started. Now, he wrote like a madman, and he did it in 2 days, which makes him gifted, but it can be done. The Beatles wrote Help in a night. Lionel Richie wrote Easy on the subway on the way into the studio. Gloria Estefan wrote Coming Out of the Dark in 10 minutes. So it can be done if you're focused and you want to do it. Again, these people are the exception, not the rule. Okay? So if you want to get your book done, you need to set up a date, you need to set up a time, and you need to hold yourself accountable to it, and you need to start. Okay, now we've started our book. We've gone through all the steps. We've started our book. Now, we have to designate time on a daily or weekly or monthly basis that we are going to actually sit down and work on the book. If you say you're going to work on the book 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., then you are going to write Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Okay, you have to let the people you know in your life that that's your time. You're trying to get something accomplished. And yeah, it's going to come off a little selfish, but this is for you. You're available all the other times in your life, so at some point in time, you have to designate something for yourself. Okay? They'll get used to it. They'll work around it. You know, so we'll go over the steps one more time. We're finding a topic that we're passionate about, a topic that we're knowledgeable about. Okay, we're going to go through the writing exercise if our writing chops aren't sharp. Okay, our next step is what? Start. Okay, and now we're to the point where We're going to start and we're going to be consistent and we're going to designate time to write. Okay, the next phase of writing a book is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Okay, let me explain what that means. When you write a book, you generally bare your soul, whether you think you're bearing it or not. I'll give you an example with my book. My book, entitled The Good Wolf, is very sexual. It just is. It was necessary. It had to be written this way for the character to be authentic. And I sent it to a friend of mine in Chicago by the name of Dee Bryant Simmons. She's an incredible writer. She wrote a book entitled How to Knock a Brave Bird from Her Perch about domestic violence. She suffered from domestic violence. And this woman is an incredible writer. One day she's going to be huge, trust me. So we were tweeting back and forth, and she asked me a question. She said, "Does Randall ever have sex in his bed?" And I thought about the question. And the answer was no. And he had sex everywhere but his own bed. And I figured out that Randall, like the writer, doesn't really like people in his space too close. Now, I always knew that about me, but I didn't realize there was a lot of me coming in the character. So Randall, he's having sex on couches and tables. He's doing all this crazy stuff, but it's never in his bed. It's never too close. He's always detached. He's always in control. Just kind of like me, like I used to be. I never really dated women that I would consider marriage material because I didn't want to get anybody that close to me until I met my wife. She was the first woman that I dated that I really thought was going to be a long-term relationship, and we were going to get married. Now, I didn't really understand that until Danielle brought it to my attention. So I was actually bearing my soul without knowing I was bearing my soul. It's very difficult to be honest when you write. That's why a lot of writers get into alcohol, into drugs, a lot of musicians, because there's a filter that's in your body that stops you from being hurt. Okay, it's like, should I say that? Should I not do that? I'll give you another example. Marvin Gaye, great entertainer, wrote What's Going On, an American classic. He was high on cocaine for 2 weeks when he wrote it. And he said God gave it to him. It's such an incredible album. That may be true. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that you have to move yourself to another place and get yourself out of the way so you can let the true you, the true, honest, raw emotion, flow out of whatever you're doing. One more example, and then I'll move on. Mary J. Blige, My Life, probably at her absolute height creatively. But personally, her life was a train wreck. She was lonely, she was on drugs, she was on alcohol. But because she felt so bad and so destitute, she just stripped herself of all, what are they going to think? And she sent out a rescue call for everybody. And we responded, because there's times when you listen to My Life, it'll bring you to tears because it's so honest and so raw. And that's what I did with The Good Wolf. When I wrote it, I was very tired. I was out of it. I was working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the night, from 6 p.m. at night to 6 a.m. in the morning. And when I usually would start, I'd start after 10 when we got all the work done. And when I wrote the really graphic sexual scenes, I usually wrote them about 1 o'clock in the morning by myself in the office when it's fairly dark, because I had to go to that place to be able to write it. And if you're going to write it, the only way you're going to be able to connect with people is to be honest. And being honest is the hardest thing to do when you're being judged. So when I use the term get comfortable being uncomfortable, flinching when you write, like, should I put that out there? What are they going to think of me? That's what you want to write. And that's when you connect with people. Okay, now, before you get too far into your book, try, when maybe 20, 30 pages in, try to get some feedback. And it's not a matter of if they like it or dislike it. The feedback you're really looking for is what you're saying and what you're trying to say, is that what the reader is getting out of the book? Okay, if the point of the book is I love fishing, and then somebody reads it and they say, wow, you really hate fishing. Well, you've kind of missed the mark, okay, if it's one of those books. If you're telling a story, it doesn't really matter if you're telling a story and you're trying to tell it in a way that it's art and it's beautiful and it's open to interpretation. The term is called negative capability. You tell the story, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. Shakespeare was the best at this term, and I'll kind of explain it to you using Romeo and Juliet as an example. When some people read Romeo and Juliet, they think it's the most incredible, beautiful love story of all time. They think that, wow, I wish I could love somebody that much, that I was willing to die for them. Some people read Romeo and Juliet and they say these two kids would be alive if they just listened to their parents. Okay, for Romeo and Juliet, for some folks, is a tale of disobedience. Somebody else might read Romeo and Juliet and say that their relationship is destructive because they're so dependent upon each other. And the reason you can get so many different interpretations of Romeo and Juliet is because it's so well done. So it just matters, from whose eyes are you looking at it from? Are you looking at it from the eyes of Romeo and Juliet? Are you looking at it from the eyes of their parents? Are you looking at it through the eyes of a mental health professional? All those interpretations happen because Shakespeare didn't write Mary Had a Little Lamb. There was a lot of interpretation to it. Like my book, The Good Wolf. If you look at the reviews, you'll see a bunch of different reviews saying a bunch of different things. I'm glad most of them are positive, but people are getting different stuff out of the book, so I know I did it well because it's open to interpretation. So the feedback is important. Listen to what they're saying. Don't try to steer the story. Just tell the story. Let the story flow through you. And if you get that feedback, it'll kind of let you know if you're going in the right direction, if that's what you're trying to do, if you're trying to say something specific. If you're trying to tell a story, let a few different people read it, and if they get different things out of the story, then you're definitely going in the right direction. Okay, we're going to talk about a little bit when you get stuck and you can't write anymore and you got either writer's block or writer's fatigue. Some people don't get writer's block, but everybody gets writer's fatigue. So let me explain writer's fatigue. It usually happens when you're about 65 or 70% in the book. And you've written a lot and you still can't get to the end. You're too far in to quit, but it seems like it's going to take forever to finish. The best example would be running a marathon. When you get to about miles 16, 17, 18, somewhere in there, somewhere in your mind you have to push through because you've already ran 18 miles, but in your mind you still got 8 to go. That's writer's fatigue. That's natural. Writer's block is when you're just stuck. You don't know what to write. Okay, a good technique for writer's block is Try to get out of your own head. Don't think about what you would write. Think about if you were the character, what would you do? See, I never get writer's block because when I start writing, I'm not me anymore. I don't worry about what I would say. If I'm writing about a woman, I write what would she say, not what I would do. I try to stay true to the character. Quentin Tarantino's another one. He doesn't get writer's block. He stays true to the character. So if you can do that and not worry about what you would do in a particular situation, think about what the character would do. If the character was a prostitute, a male prostitute, what would a male prostitute do at this particular time? Really detailed. You want to stick to the character. And usually you can write your way out of it. Now, if you have writer's fatigue, you probably need a break. Take a break, relax, get away from it for a while, and then get back to it when you got the energy to put back in the project. So there's two different things: writer's fatigue, writer's block. Okay, here's another aspect of writing that's important to me. If you don't like it, if you don't like what you wrote, why do you expect anybody else to like it? Okay, you have to stand behind the words you write. You have to think it's funny or entertaining or sad. And usually you're a really good judge of that. Usually if it makes you feel something, it makes other people feel something. But if you write something and you're like, it's okay, and you probably need to start again. Because most folks, when they read stuff, they're going to try to be nice because they love you and they like you. So they don't want to be mean. So they're going to use words like nice and you did a good job there and you have nice hair and good posture and all kind of stuff that really doesn't matter about writing. You know, excellent teeth. You know, they don't want to be mean. Okay, but when you put your book out and when you're on Twitter and people are reviewing it, they don't love you. They don't even know you. You know, so they're going to absolutely let it fly, which kind of comes to my next point is you got to be tough. Okay? Everybody's not going to love your book. Everybody didn't love my book. Most people love my book. But some people found my book very offensive. Some people found it too crude. You know, the language was too rough. Did it hurt? Yeah. Did it stop me from going forward? No. Because I believed in the book. I believed it was good. So when you believe in something and you believe that it's good, everybody's not going to love it. You know, there's very few Star Wars in the world where it's universally loved. You know, when you're writing from your soul and you're really punching people in the face with your words, you know, some people can't handle it. So you have to be tough and deal with it and work through it. And I talked about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. It's absolutely necessary to do that if you're going to be a successful writer and not take it so personally. Okay, and don't be afraid to change it if there's a good idea. Okay? I don't care if you completed the entire book and it's ready for publishing. If you need to change it, if you think something needs to be added, you do it. I'll give you two examples. One is my book. There's a character in there named Brittany. She was well written, but there was nothing really jumping off the page. I was completely finished with the book, but I happened to work with a girl that was Russian. She was a Russian immigrant. So I got to talking to her a little bit about the culture and the food, and I'd already completed The Good Wolf. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make Brittany Russian. It's more entertaining. So I had to go back and rewrite Brittany as a Russian immigrant with very little accent because she's been assimilated to the United States, and it made the book that much better. And I'm glad I went back and took the time to do it. I'll give you another example. I'll use Rocky again. Burt Young, the gentleman that plays Paulie in Rocky, was not in the original script. Adrian was supposed to be living with her mother, her Jewish mother. Well, what happened was Sylvester Stallone met Burt Young at the studio, and he's like, I really want to get this guy in a movie, but I don't have a part for him. So he rewrote the character to be Adrian's big brother that kind of looks after him. And the film took on a completely different aspect. And he did that because he wasn't afraid to change it. He already had a great film. It was already going to get shot. But he's like, wait a minute. I need this guy in here, and I can put a certain twist in there. Another example in Rocky. The scene, the ice skating scene, where Rocky and Adrian are skating when the rink is closed. That scene originally was supposed to have a bunch of ice skaters in it. But the problem was they didn't have the budget for it. So they went in the back and they rewrote the scene with just him and her. And it's one of the most iconic scenes in the history of film. And they didn't worry about the budget. They didn't worry, okay, maybe we pay people half the money, we get some people to do it for free. They just saw an opportunity, they jumped on it, and they changed. One more Rocky example, and then I'm finished. When Sylvester Stallone was working out for Rocky II, he tore up his right pectoral muscle. Okay? So he had to rewrite the script because, you know, he's a southpaw in the movie. So he rewrote the script to where he would normally throw the jab with his right because he's left-handed. He changed it so he would throw the jab with his left so he could get everything done. Now, he was open to change. He didn't wait for his pectoral muscle to heal. He just worked with what he had. He kept an open mind, and he changed. So if you get a good idea. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this session with writing. I hope you learned something. I hope you indulge me a little bit with the writing of this book. Future shows, like I said, there's going to be interesting guests. There's going to be awesome stuff going on. And I just hope you join me on Access Sacramento or YouTube or wherever you watch it. And my name is Cedric Boyd, and this is The Good Wolf, and I'm just going to remind you to always feed your good wolf.